as you can see, my objective is not to practice the subjunctive or to learn vocabulary or to know. It is a really communicative object. We are going to have an outcome that is not linguistic, and we're going to, find out about gadgets in the kitchen. First of all, right, what is the communicative purpose? Because the pedagogic task, they are, as target tasks, have a communicative purpose. What is that students are going to learn as a result of doing tasks that is not linguistic, right? What is that students are going to be able to do? What is that we are going to find out about ourselves, about the instructor, about the community, about the world? What is that? What is the outcome, right, of this pedagogic task? So, as I said yesterday, the communicative purpose is something, that's through. That is, that something that relates to interaction, to interpretation, to expression of meaning in a context with a purpose, right? That is a communicative activity, right? That is a communicative task. So what is the communicative purpose? I'm going to give you an example so you have more or less a better idea. It's clear. So this is the first thing that you have to find out for the pedagogic task. What is that students are going to arrive at, right? Then in what ways will this task help students to complete the target task successfully, right? One pedagogic task is not going to help students to do the target task. You have to have several pedagogic, because the target task is pretty complex, right? So what you do is you unpack the target task and see, well, this activity is going to, or this task, pedagogic task is going to help students to accomplish this part of the target task. This other is going to help students to accomplish this, etc. So the pedagogic tasks are like stepping stones, right, in the completion of the target task. Today we're going to have only one, right, with the understanding that we will need most likely we're going to need more pedagogic tasks throughout the pedagogic unit, so students are better prepared, right? But in what ways these particular pedagogic tasks are going to help students to accomplish the target task successfully? Then let's think about what will students have to do that has the potential to help them learn the linguistic knowledge necessary for the target task, right? So in that way, what is that students, in what ways are we going to facilitate the acquisition of the new language that is required for the target task? I think many of you are going to say, well, it has to be lots of input, right? Readings, listening, things that are going, like maybe having the certain keywords enhanced so students pay attention to it, and they are incorporating this new language, as they are doing the pedagogic task, right? So think about that, in what ways this pedagogic task is going to help students. And I'm going to show you, as I said, in an example later. Okay, so this is one of the purposes. Another thing is think about the modes of communication that the pedagogic tasks involve. It could be just interpretation, fantastic, with a communicative outcome, of course, right? Interaction with a communicative outcome, right? Expression, or the three of them, right? Or two of them, or it could be, but it is always good to have what is the mode of communication that students are going to be engaged in, so you are better prepared to manage the class and everything, right? Okay. Another one is, are there enough steps in the procedure and the procedure is clear, right, to be carried out successfully? So you don't want to rush a pedagogic task, because pedagogic tasks are essential aspects of the pedagogic unit, right? You want to take your time. You want to have several steps very well detailed and specified so students can follow, right? Take your time. In my program, for example, in my class, I only have usually one pedagogic task per class time for 50 minutes. In 50 minutes, I sometimes have only one, sometimes two pedagogic tasks. I do it very carefully. I implement it in a very careful way, guiding the students, take my time and really exploit, each of the steps of the pedagogic task, right? So the procedure has to be clear, and the objective, the goal has to be clear for you and for the students. So students had to read, the problems of these three people, select one that they want to resolve, design the object with their hand, right, with paper and pencil, that can solve, right, this problem, and then these students have to present the object, and they have to describe the object to the class, what it is for, what is it called, why is serving this purpose, what does it do, what is the material, anything that we do as speakers of Spanish, in this case Spanish, or as native speakers do, when they have to describe an object with the purpose of enhancing their qualities, so it wins, right? So the class is going to pick, a winner, the best object of them all, right? So very well, Eric. Fantastic. Okay, so keeping in mind this goal that I had, right? This goal, and I only had 5 days, remember, to do this, to prepare my students. This is one of the pedagogic tasks that I had, whose purpose was to help students, a stepping stone in their carry out of the target task. Okay, so let's analyze it a little bit so we learn and we can do something similar, right? Based on the same principles at least. So first of all, you have this pedagogic task and has 4 steps, right? So it is structured, right? It's not just one thing, it is structured. Then, first of all, it has the communicative objective, right? To identify a kitchen gadget that it is the least useful. I think that, the designers of this material say, well, what is the least? I guess it was the least useful because usually gadgets, we buy them, because we fall in love with them at like impulse buying. And then we find out that it was just worthless and useless, right? So anyway, so this is the objective, to identify a kitchen gadget that is the least useful. As you can see, my objective is not to practice the subjunctive or to learn vocabulary or to know. It is a really communicative object. We are going to have an outcome that is not linguistic, and we're going to find out about gadgets in the kitchen, right? So what is the outcome of the task? What is that you want to accomplish as a result of the task, right? That is not linguistic. Don't say sorry to repeat that, but if you say to learn the future, that is not a communicative outcome. You cannot say that, So say something else, what is at the end, why the future, what to do what, right? Okay. So how much time would you give the students for each step? When and how would you contextualize the task to make it relevant? That is very important. We were talking about gadgets, but it was not relevant until I asked you about your gadgets, right? About what is that you have that is completely useless in your kitchen. Do you have something, or your mother, right? Maybe if it is in primary school or secondary school, maybe students do not cook much, but they can go and ask their mother, mother, do you have a gadget that is very useless, and they can bring it to class, for example, right? But make it relevant to their lives. When would the students work alone, and when in pairs and groups, and why? Ask always this. Why has always given me very good, it's very helpful for me. I have observed a lot of, classes in Spanish language classes with novice teachers, and they put them in pairs for work that it could be easily done individually, right? So why in pairs if they have to read? You read usually individually, right? So think, why in pairs? In what ways the pair work is going to help, the student accomplish the task? What happens of the task material, or what aspects of the task material would be challenging, right? Or how are you going to address it? Is it too difficult, the text? How can I make it less difficult? Without losing authenticity, of course, right? Or maybe challenging for you, like as a teacher, like what happened to me, that the names of the gadgets, because English is my second language, for me were I didn't know how to even to say it in Spanish. So think about that in a proactive way. What would you do to make students accountable? This is so important for engagement, right? You make to make each and every one student accountable. Someone has to do to play a role in the whole thing, you know. If you see here, right, I said, well, you are prepared. Yeah, prepare yourself here, number 2, because in number 3, you're going to be saying something, you know. And then you group are going to pay attention to your classmates, because you have to select the least useful. So in 2 and 3 is deliberately, I am making the effort of making everyone accountable. So it increases engagement, right? Fantastic. Okay. So before I give you, I'm going to give you a motivating citation, you know, motivating phrase that I think it encompasses what a pedagogic task is, you know, and it's going to maybe helpful for your class, for your task. So Van den Branden, which is, you know, a scholar in TVLT, very known, you know, I love him. He says, I would suggest that what crucially matters is that a pedagogic task is conceived as motivating, challenging, you know, and holistic activity, which activates students into meaningful language use in order to achieve a clear outcome. I think it's very beautiful, you know, exactly. I would say challenging enough, right? You cannot be too challenging, because otherwise, you know, you kill totally the motivation, but it should be something that students are interested in, that is challenging, etc.